A very warm welcome to you from Equa Marketing. This presentation is brought to you by Equa.com, a leader in digital marketing. Hello and welcome to the Growing Vet podcast. My name is Jamie Edson, and today I'm going to be talking to Naren Arulrajah, the founder and host of the Growing Vet podcast. The Growing Vet podcast series is a bi-monthly feature for veterinarians who want to grow professionally but also want to experience a parallel growth in their personal lives. And now, let's get started. Hi, Naren. I'd like to start off with a few questions that will provide our listeners with a better understanding of the Growing Vet and the vision and goals behind the podcast series. You are the CEO and founder of Equa Marketing and Doctor's Choice Awards. And now you're launching the Growing Vet. But before we get to the entrepreneur, tell us what the Growing Vet is all about.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. Yes, so let me spend a couple of minutes explaining what the Growing Vet podcast is all about. It's going to be a bi-monthly, typically around 2 times a month or every other week podcast. And we'll be interviewing veterinarians, coaches, and outside experts. And we have a simple purpose. Just like the name suggests, growingvet.com, this is for veterinary practice owners who are looking to create a bigger future and create a bigger future in terms of time, money, and purpose. And here we will be sharing with our listeners ideas, experiences, and anything at all from veterinarians, coaches, and outside experts to grow a bigger practice, create a bigger future.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be an amazing podcast, Naren. I'm positive our listeners are wanting to know what you mean by a bigger future. But first, let's delve a bit deeper into the vision behind the Growing Vet.
Yeah, absolutely. I started from nothing after getting fired, 4 times in a row and realizing that I'm not meant to work for others. And as somebody who started from nothing and with no real experience other than, working in corporate America, I had to learn things the hard way. And I have created a future that's 100 times bigger today than it was maybe 12 years ago. And I have learned a lot, and a lot of it is by mistakes. Also, my business is helping doctors create a bigger future. I run Equa.com, which is a marketing company for doctors. And in the process, I've had the privilege of working with doctors, for years and years, even from the day I started my business, at least my marketing business for doctors. And I've seen our doctors also grow. So watching them grow, kind of helping them grow with marketing, I have also grown a lot from amazing doctors like yourself. So in this podcast, we'll be sharing experiences from people we know who are practicing veterinarians, as well as experts and coaches. So the purpose here is to really, help you hopefully make less mistakes or fewer mistakes, so you too can learn from the experience of others.
So basically, you've had a front row seat on seeing those you've worked with become successful, would you say?
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. So, Naren, let's get back to bigger future. What does it mean?
Yes. So having worked with more than 200 doctors, I have noticed that the definition of what bigger future means changes as the doctor matures and his practice matures. So really, we try to answer 4 questions. What do you want in terms of time, money, purpose, and relationships? But the answer I get from a doctor who's just starting out is different from a doctor who has been practicing for 30 years, and of course different even in between. So this podcast explores that, and of course, depending on the different phases you might be in, hopefully will help you create that bigger future when it comes to time, money, purpose, or relationships.
I think it's amazing that you build a relationship with your clients and you're able to see what changes not only in their practice, but their personal lives as well. So in continuing on with this, can you tell me what bigger future typically looks like for a young veterinarian just starting out?
Absolutely. It's kind of hard to generalize because, it depends on their age, depends whether they are male or female, whether they have kids or not. But typically what I see is if somebody is going into private practice and kind of, starting on their own, whether they are buying an existing practice or whether they are, building one out, typically at that time they have a lot of loans, right? School loans. They probably have borrowed money to buy the practice or build it out. So at the early days, they're just trying to, keep the lights on, pay the bills, and pay the banker. So they're really focused early on in revenues. And then after they're in practice for a while, they get more and more confidence and they're not under pressure as much. And they realize there's a difference between revenues and profits. So 1 or 2 years down the road, maybe even 3 years down the road, they start paying more attention to profit. So it starts with revenue, then they start realizing the difference between revenue and profit, and then they start focusing more and more on profits. That's typically what I say. But like I said, it's hard to generalize. Depending on the person's situation, it might be different.
Okay. So you just touched upon veterinarians who have been in practice now for about 2 to 3 years. So let's go a bit further and let's talk about a veterinarian who is 3 to 5 years in practice. Now, this would be the stage when they realize money does not necessarily equal happiness. So what happens next? What is their mindset?
Yeah, well, especially once they have children in the picture and the children are growing up, and they are in practice and they're not struggling anymore, their thinking starts shifting. They start thinking not just about profits, but also about time, because they want to spend time with their spouses and their children. They realize the children are going to grow up very fast and they won't have a lot of time to spend with their kids. So then they start prioritizing, time as much or if not more than money. And they really start valuing, those precious moments they have with their kids. So I think it starts shifting once people start having children. Their priorities change. The way they look at things change. So in addition to money, now time comes into the picture of a bigger future.
Right. It is interesting, Naren, how many of us start out all about money. And then as we grow personally and professionally, our mindsets change. We aren't just thinking about ourselves. We now have families and other priorities. And one of those priorities is time. So we want to work less and spend more time with our families. Is there more that goes into the bigger future?
Absolutely. So we talked about time. We talked about money. The next thing I think that they start paying attention to is purpose. Now, they're comfortable, they have good relationships with their family members, hopefully, and time is no longer a big driving force. I mean, they have the time they need and they have the money they need. Now they start focusing on relationships, on purpose. And I see people take one of two routes. One is they focus on being a hero to somebody. The other route is they focus on, really going deep in one clinical area or a few clinical areas and really specializing in it. So I see both of them. But yeah, typically at that time, purpose comes into play.
Right. So in this journey, they start finding a purpose and they do things that are meaningful, not only to them, but to those around them also. So more money, more time, and now a deeper purpose. Where is this leading them?
Yeah, so I would like to talk more about being a hero to your clients and your patients. A lot of people go into veterinary medicine because they love animals. They love, animals as children, probably when they were growing up, and they really wanted to make a difference in the lives of these pet owners as well as in the lives of these pets. So they really start thinking more and more deeply about who do they want to be a hero to and how can they be more of a hero to, the group of people. So they start getting more refined. I'm not saying everybody does it, but the ones who are in a good position financially and time-wise, they start thinking of, instead of trying to be everything to everybody, they want to be a hero to a few people. They start looking at the mindsets of their clients. They start looking at, for example, if your clients don't take care of their pets, and that's your business, and you're always, kind of fixing things or, solving problems after the fact, and you're not really happy about that, you might shift your thinking and your practice more towards clients who do take care of their pets, who do take a proactive approach, as opposed to a reactive approach. So I notice people going deeper and deeper in terms of who do they want to be a hero to, what type of clients, and so forth. And they start kind of customizing their practice accordingly.
And that makes absolute sense. Relationships are very important. Now, let me review this a little bit. We have time, money, purpose, and relationships. These are all things that they focus on when creating their bigger future. So now they're paying attention to the type of patients they serve and the relationships that they have with those patients. Where does this fit in with their team? Are they building that important relationship with those that they work with every day?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like, they're starting to think about who do they want to be a hero to in terms of clients, they also start thinking about who do they want to be a hero to and who do they want to be in their team. So again, like you said, these are all relationships, right? So time, money, purpose, and relationships. There was a Harvard study not too long ago that said that the happiest people are the ones who had great relationships. The Harvard studied people over, I think, a period of 50 years. And relationships was one of the key drivers of all those people who ended up happy even 50 years later in their 90s and so forth. So yeah, relationships is important, and we all spend a lot of time with our colleagues. So you want to think more deeply about who do you want to hang around with, who do you want to work with, and they start becoming more and more selective because you don't want to work with just anybody. You want to work with people you enjoy. So they start asking questions like, what are the mindsets of my best team members? What are the mindsets of my worst team members? How do I attract the right team members? How do I keep them engaged, the right team members engaged? So for example, in our business, we find our best team members have a growth mindset. What I mean by that is, people who have a growth mindset usually look at the glass as half full, and their question is, okay, how do I make the rest of the glass full? So they're always looking at what's working and what's good, and they're trying to figure out how to build on it. And then the opposite of growth mindset is scarcity mindset. These people look at the half empty side of the glass, and they're like, oh, my life is not that great, or my business is not that great, or my job is not that great, and it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. Maybe it's the government's problem. Maybe it's my manager's problem. They're always trying to look at the half empty side of, life. So I find that I don't want to work with people who have that scarcity mindset. I would rather work with people who have the growth mindset, meaning the people who look at the half full side of life and work, because they're more fun, they're more positive, right? So of course, these are choices we have to make, and as people grow on the kind of relationships they'll start looking at these things.
Exactly. And I think that at one point or another, we all want to be a hero to someone. And when we do, it changes our own mindset to look at things differently. So we also work easier with those who feel the same way we do and look at things the same way we do. Um, Naren, I want to talk about topics and who will be on the Growing Vet podcast. I'm positive that some of our topics will cover growth in these core areas that we have already discussed: time, money, purpose, and relationships. What else can we expect from this podcast series?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be bringing in a lot of experts, people who have been there, done that. And a lot of times I like to learn from actual doctors who have real scars and real experiences. So, of course, it'll be, practicing veterinarians. It'll be, experts who have worked with veterinarians for years and decades. It might even be people from outside the industry who can bring a different and fresh perspective. So my hope is, help you make fewer mistakes, help you learn different ways of looking at the world and looking at things from others who have walked before you, and perhaps you might find some idea or two that's intriguing and useful from each episode, and maybe you might even be inspired to try some of these in your own practice.
All right, sounds great. So, Naren, now that you have introduced the podcast, let us talk a little bit about you. You founded Equa Marketing, and it has at least 200 people now, correct?
That is correct. And in terms of what I have done, Equa Marketing, which is ekwa.com. It's our website, and you can check it out. What I'm the proudest of is 90% of our doctors stay with us year after year. And I looked at the mindsets of our most successful doctors. They have three mindsets. They're growth-oriented, which we talked about before. They tend to appreciate themselves and others, and this is important because our business is people-driven. So when our clients appreciate our team members work harder for them. And finally, they are team players, meaning they take the time to research and find us, but once they do find us, they let us lead and they listen to us and they work with us. We do 95% of the work, but our clients tend to stay engaged and with these three mindsets, are continually creating a bigger future for themselves, and it's a pleasure working with them. So that's Equa, which is my core business, and that's kind of a lot of where our people are. Also, I started fanschoice.org, which we currently have 16,000 businesses with one or more reviews from fans. Fans are people who love you and love your business and want to see you succeed. And I like creating new things. I mean, of course, Growing Vet is a podcast that we launched recently, and we have launched other podcasts. So so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like new ideas and I like to innovate. So a lot of what we do, even for our clients, is not just same old, but new things and different things. So as marketing itself and the internet itself keeps changing, our clients are at the cutting edge.
Well, you've definitely got some great marketing tools going on and with all the things that you've created. And Naren, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I do believe that this is a great introduction. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing podcast series for veterinarians. And I do believe that all who listen will greatly benefit from the expertise of those who will be on this podcast.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I feel it's a good introduction, and we have laid out the vision for the podcast series, so anybody listening kind of will know what they're going to get out of this. So thank you, Jamie, and thank you, everyone, for listening to our first episode of Growing Vet podcast show.
And that's a wrap to the first episode of the Growing Vet podcast series. You are listening to Naren Arulrajah. Thank you all for joining in. We'll see you soon with a new episode of The Growing Vet. So until next time, take care.